Well, the flooding we are seeing throughout Kentuckiana is serious, and we want to make sure you have everything you need to know as this weather continues. WDRB Chief Meteorologist Marc Weinberg here now to tell us more about this flooding. And there are different types of flooding. They're all bad, but explain the differences.
Yeah, I think I've been asked that by a number of people. Mark, I'm under a flood warning, or I'm under a flash flood warning, and what's the difference? And I think that I thought it makes sense to give some of the reference points that all of us remember. You probably remember '09. This was that summer in August where in the morning it started raining, and it rained so hard, so fast that even if you were near rivers or streams or creeks, it didn't matter. The water came up everywhere. At our station, we are not near any river, and the water started to come into our station and it did damage. And you can see there was water coming out of the sewer system. Ugh. This is kind of the legendary flash flood for our area. I have never, ever, ever seen something like this in this area where it was, and you know, people didn't know what to do. I think they thought, you know what, this is, I can drive through this. This is not an area that's near a river. I'm not going to have problems. And the amount of rescues that we had during that '09 flash flood event was absolutely unbelievable. The other type of flooding that we also talk about is river flooding. So river flooding is something you're going to be more accustomed to. The Ohio River is going to be flooding. And sometimes we can get the flood warnings that are not flash. And what I mean by that is now you're talking about rain that has occurred over several days versus '09 when it fell in 3 hours. This would be what we're talking about in earlier of this year and in 2018. The Ohio River started to swell after we got a lot of rain, and you can see it started to push out of its banks. And that's what we're talking about as the flash flood threat will go down on Sunday. The river flood threat will continue to rise. So Scott, that's a lot of times we're going to see this now after the heaviest rain ends. You will probably stay under a flood warning, and then into next week, these rivers are going to be flooding into next week. So there's very, very different concerns, but they're both life-threatening.
You get warning about that one. They're moving out the washers and dryers in Utica, and of course it comes up onto the waterfront lawn, and then even when it recedes, it is such a mess. I do remember a thunder where people brought down the tarps and wore their boots and old blue jeans.
We called them the mudders.
It was a muddy mess, but the show went on. That might be the best case scenario at this point. Who knows, right? It's still
some real
too
problems.
early.
The flow, the debris in the river, to me, are going to be the biggest challenges to getting those barges out there.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Good information.